Hi, everyone. Thank you to all that are in person. Thank you, everyone, who is joining us remotely. Mark, it'd be great to see everybody's faces. If you can and are able to turn on your camera, we'd love to see your face and do a big hello. Everyone in the room can also see. Hi. Great. Um, Welcome to this evening's hello, this evening's professional development workshop, budget crafting. Because guess what's really fun to talk about? Any night of the week, really, budgets. We are super honored to have Suki O'Kane with us today, who I will introduce in just a moment. I am Crystal Pascucci Clifford. I'm the executive director of Intermusic SF. And this is one of five or six professional development workshops that we will be giving this spring. This is particularly part of three workshops that we're giving that supports grant proposal crafting within our musical grant program um, uh, cycle. So this is the second. If you missed the first, it's a musical grant program overview and technical assistance workshop. And then we'll also be having another workshop on narrative writing by David Blasevich of the Fleischhacker Foundation on March 11th, also at 7 p.m., virtual and in person. I just wanted to quickly say a little bit about Intermusic SF. We are a nonprofit organization that serves musicians and local audiences here in the Bay Area. And we were founded in 1998, not a number I say that much anymore, which is almost, it's this program was started almost 30 years ago. The musical grant program started, we're in our 18th year, 19th cycle. And this workshop does not have to be specific to the musical grant program. If you are just here to learn more about proposal writing and budget crafting for any of your grant proposals, then you're in the right place. I will say that we are also a fiscal sponsor, which we'll be talking a little bit about, essentially grant funding as an individual with and without fiscal sponsorship, and what kind of opportunities kind of are available for both options, and why that's essentially kind of why we're mapping that out. And then the musical grant program obviously was founded in 2008, the same year as the SF Music Day, which is our annual free music festival this year on October 25th. So save the date. It will be downtown San Francisco at the War Memorial Performing Arts Center downtown. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Suki O'Kane, Oakland-based musician, composer, improviser, and instigator, also a longtime collaborator and friend. Suki works with artists from a wide array of musicianship, movement, multi media performances, public art genres. She is a student of the monumental and durational forms, combining Jurassic electronics, everyday objects, and found sounds to create noisy handheld miniatures. Suki also serves as an administrator at the Walter and Elise Haas Fund, honing her craft in nonprofit finance for the good of the fund and in partnership with their grantees and grant seekers, which is exactly why we extended this invitation to her for our workshop. So, introducing Suki.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you. This musical grant program is a fantastic resource for all of us in the Bay. I'm Suki O'Kane. We're going to pull up the decks and start talking after I log in. So, one moment. Thank you. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. When you came into the room and into the Zoom room, we were listening to the music of Daniel Popsicle. Dan Plonzi is a local composer from playing the world music of Northern El Cerrito. And this book of compositions was called Student Work. Dan was running the Daniel Popsicle Band while he was teaching math at Berkeley High. And he would start every semester with his students, having them write an essay about their relationship with math. And I thought it was so appropriate to ask to focus in on piece number 8. It was a short essay with the lead sentence, "My relationship with math is very little." So as artists, we often deal with an assumption about our relationship with our numbers, but I'm here now to bring our collective consciousness together. We're going to do this. If you're at a workshop of any kind, you should always ask yourself, why am I here? What is the purpose? What am I going to get out of it? What are the outcomes? And how are we going to get there? That's why this slide is up right now. Our purpose is to just share among us the fundamentals. I've done a lot of budgets as a grant seeker and also in my work in a grant making organization, but we should be able to share our fundamentals tonight. And the outcomes is that when you go, you will have a working knowledge of all the elements of a project budget. This will help you with your MGP application, and you'll be ready to build a project budget that aligns with your story, your grant narrative, that get those two things knitted together really well. Our process is we'll just spend a little moment getting grounded on our relationship to math, numbers, and money. And then we're going to go ahead and take a tour of a typical arts project budget and work together to map those numbers to a story and ask and answer questions. Because I'm doing this at a super high level, it's because I'm interested in all your questions and how we might help each other, especially if you're attempting to get into an MGP application on time. So we'll do it together. That'll be great. The Q&A can happen at the end of each major section, but please collect your questions. If you're online, throw them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to all of them. And then we'll pause at the end of this material and just get into all of your deep questions about your budgets in progress. Sound good? All right. Let's go on and start grounding ourselves. My origin story is that a fellow nonprofit worker came over to my studio to help me create a budget for a grant application. I'd never done so. They took a big pull from their consumable and shrugged and said, "Hey, it's just a table with some math, and it's based on what you want to do." And then like, whoa, this really stuck with me. So I'm offering it to our rooms right now, which is budget creation is really an expression of your idea. So regardless of whether it's your first time creating a budget or your budget czar, I want everyone to step forward. The budget czars, we need you today. Talking and thinking about money, and when talking and thinking about art can catalyze other thoughts and feelings. Some can be personal, some can be political, some can be somatic, and some can be cerebral. So in my experience, artists express the same range of response to a budget request we see in the real world when we're being asked to budget our time and our money, from like, no way, no thank you, I'm out, to, oh, I know it's necessary, please take care of this, so I don't have to. And then some people are like, okay, fine, I'm in. I imagine since we're here today, a lot of us are in okay, fine. And some are saying, I'll show you how I can create the most amazing budget ever, like a budget that's so magical, it can drive a max patch or something like that. It could be that kind of budget. So let's find out about us in the moment. I invite people in the room, people in the Zoom room, to put in the chat, show of hands, you ready? Or just raise your hand. Who is creating a grant budget for the first time tonight for this proposal? Any first timers? Are we seeing any hands up? Oh, yeah? Okay, we got a couple here, a couple in the room. What are we seeing? Okay, cool. All right, excellent. Who has already had a lovely experience creating a project budget? Show of hands. I'm raising my hand. I had a lovely experience. Anyone else? Omar's got a lovely experience. Yeah. All right, great, great, great. Who has just simply survived creating a project budget? I know I'm in that category too. Um, and who wishes this was a workshop about creating a grant budget that drives a max patch? Because I've been working on that one too. No hands? Well, maybe at the end of this workshop, you can do a survey. Not pressuring you, but max patch could be fun. All right, let's get into it. On our next slide, we're going to talk about the first big chunk of a project budget, income. Incomes means all the cash coming in. On this, there's the first three buckets of income. It's called contributed. You contributed because it's a cash gift. This can be grants from public and private institutions. It can be underwriting from corporations, or it can be donations from individuals. And as you look on the MGP budget template on rows 7 through 19, you're going to be seeing lines for those things. There are other types of contributions. Your crowdfunders, maybe your Patreon or your Substack subscribers, donor advised funds. If this, I'm gonna ask Crystal to look around in the room and see if anyone is getting income from donor advised funds, stock, crypto, other conversion assets. People are giving all the time in different ways. And I put up there your savings. This happens a lot where you make a donation to yourself in order to get that project off the ground. And I'd like to open it up right now. Is there any, as you look at this list of income, is there any other type that you have in your world that we should put up on the list? No? Omar, go ahead. Yeah, this is contributed. So we'll get into the ticket sales, which is earned right after this slide. You know, when you think about budgets, you really are talking about how much you're going to spend, which is really expenses, you know. But the convention I'm going to teach tonight is that it's going to start with income, and contributions is how a lot of grant applications begin with that heading. And indeed, what makes it easier in the Bay is the Common Grant app starts off with contributions as well. And when we use those conventions, it helps application readers understand basic questions. What are you working with here? So now I'm seeing any other tax. Crystal, you want to weigh in on any other type of ways of getting donations through tax incentives? Oh,
some of their assets to you, they would convert after their passing to cash. But that's why we have other what would go under that area. And I just did want to specify that fiscally sponsored artists would be able to garner donations that have tax
advantages to the donor, yeah. No, you're the first. All right, sounds good. Let's go on to the next slide then. We are now in that earned, yeah.
Just to say that again, the other conversion assets were things like bequests, which would be like a piece of property that a family member would donate. And then once they passed, it would convert to cash. So I just wanted to also mention that fiscal sponsorship, with fiscal sponsorship, then the donor would have the tax advantage.
I love it. Yes, it is. There's a lot of regulation around this for sure. But I want to go directly into the second budget bucket, which is of income, which is earned income. That's box office. That's your ticket sales. That's your merch table. And believe it or not, that's any fee for service. So if you are you, uh, being asked to curate a part of a festival program and they're using that money because it's related to your project, it would go into here. And so would commission fees would also come in here, curatorial fees, any related workshop fees that you got, concessions. Do not forget. So on the budget template, rows 23 through 25 allow you to describe what some of those earned income streams are. So income has contributed, has earned. Let's go to the next slide. And then we have in kind, an unusual term. It just means everything, and it's an expense you didn't have to pay for because someone just gave it to you. They said, oh, I get it. You're going to need me to help you load out and load in. And I'm not going to give you an invoice for that. So they're donating their labor. Maybe it's studio time. Maybe it's rehearsal space. Maybe somebody says, that's okay. I can do all the Instagram for you and queue it up. So it just automatically goes out to promote your show. Free marketing. Free production services. Somebody says, no problem. I'm going to do your front of house sound. It's going to work out. Free beer. Free beer is also very important. It's free food also. Free merch. They said, okay, I'm gonna print all your T-shirts, and you can have them there, and you can sell them, and you can keep the dough. Other types of in kind is anything your project needed that you got for free. As we cast around the rooms right now, have people received a glad gift into their project that they didn't expect and that isn't on this list? Anything else that we want to think about together? I'm looking in the chat. People having some in kind. Row 30. That's the nice thing about the common grant application. It counts as cash, this in kind. So all of a sudden, your little budget is getting bigger. Go ahead, Crystal, what do you have? Nice.
Photography and video.
Oh, yeah, documentation, often.
Expert advice from people that are willing to give it.
Any shout outs from this room? All right, cool. Row 30 on that template. Let's go ahead and flip to the next slide. So this is the first bit of math. Contributed plus earned plus in kind equals total income. And that is what you have to work with. You begin with that. Do you always know if all that stuff's going to come true? No. But you give it your best estimate about what's achievable based on everything else that you've learned in your artistic life. So we'll dig into your questions about this, about is my income really feasible? Am I thinking about this right? Generally with box office, you will. You'll look at how many seats you could possibly sell, what the ticket price is, and you can do the math and get the number. All right, let's go to the second part of a really good arts project budget, expenses. So importantly, I'm approaching expenses at a really high level. You'll see that the MGP application organizes them a little differently than I'm talking, but that's okay. What you learned today can be applied to that application. And it's not unusual that by learning things at a high level and then looking at a grant application budget, it looks a little different. Expect that because people think of things differently. But by learning at these buckets at a universal level, it's like learning concert C. Then you can transpose everything into different applications. And you could then say, okay, applications are just in different tunings. I'll transpose. So let's talk about people. The first bucket of expenses is always people. performers, your composers, all the production folks, lighting, sound, mixing, mastering, designers, right? Illustrators, filmmakers, all your documentarians, writers, media managers. Mm, I've seen project budgets that had a copyist. That was pretty awesome. I love having that person in around. Stage managers, stage hands. Sometimes that's provided by your presenter in kind. Um, Accountants, grant writers. I did add your personal assistant. If you haven't identified that person, get started. And then the budget template, rows 44 to 46, allow you to list all this out. Okay, I'm opening up to the room. Who are the people that you want to pay in your project? Who see anybody that you want to add to the list? Anything going on? No. What are you hearing?
I'm not getting anything in the chat, but I just want to point out that these are all the people for the project.
Yeah, yeah.
So accountants and grant writers, would those be full amounts for the year, or would
A
they be
portion.
a portion?
Whatever. If you had them working with you for 12 months, but they only focused on this for 10 days, 10 days of what they're doing. We'll get into this when we look at some indirect. Yeah.
And the question in the chat was, what about people to clear rights?
Wow. Yeah. I wonder, yes, please include them.
Yes.
Yeah. The families that surround our chosen families around our arts projects are vast and talented. When we really start to add it all up, who's involved, it's a crowd generally. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next bucket of expenses. We talked about personnel, people, and my next big bucket is non-personnel. These are two words that you'll see a lot in grant budget applications, non-personnel. That is basically all the things. The first bucket was all the people. This is all the things. All your operating expenses, all your program expenses, your rehearsal, studio rental, your gear. And I want to make sure I understand that how MGP feels about gear purchase too. Merchandise, getting your merch put together, advertising, printing, should be all that food and beverage. You're going to have a concession. On the budget template, you'll see this in rows 37 to 41. And as you think about your expenses for your project, what else is popping up for you now? This room and in the Zoom room. And then I'd like to get a comment from Crystal about which of these expenses are on the table or off the table with MGP.
For the MGP, all of these expenses are eligible except for gear purchase. Gear rental is eligible.
Makes sense. Yeah. Any other expenses that people have that they would like to put into their project? If you don't see it on this list, we can talk it through.
I would say one thing to add might be guest artist travel.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see that on here, but also MGP that is not eligible, but it can be eligible for other proposals. And it's something to consider when you're inviting an artist from elsewhere. That would be something also, it might mean payment for visas and some legal counsel that would go under personnel.
Yeah.
So just kind of diving into that instrument portage or cartage. Cartage would go under personnel.
Nice.
And then could you add a line to compensate yourself? So yeah, I would add that as if you're not giving. So if you're paying yourself, it would be a line. It would be a line of expense regardless. And then if there's a portion of that or that is that is pro bono, then you would add that as an
In kind.
in-kind
Yeah.
donation. But you would want to basically, yeah, you would want to say, what does it take to make this project come to life? And you want to account for that and show the actual cost of the project.
Yeah, and we can get it to into Q&A, but I'll just say right now, I'm really sensitive to the idea that artists in the Bay don't pay themselves very well. And that could be because of the conditions in which they do their work. I'm trying to be really politic about this. Or there could be some other ideas about how you want to support everyone else before you take your own cut out of it. But the airline rule is correct. You put on your own mask before helping others. So the idea that we should value our work as artists and have a line item for yourself inside this project is an act of solidarity, recognition, transparency that we all are in this work together. We deserve to have a wage. I think in the materials that we send out, I'll provide some resource links to where artists are tracking their wages nationally. So you can start comparing. But the more we talk about it, the easier it will become for us to insist that our work gets properly compensated. Let's go on to the next slide. I have this thing about maybe after that one. Oh, yeah. Indirect costs. Earlier, Crystal and I were talking about the fact that, hey, did you have a grant writer help you? But are they only working on this project? That's it? Great. They're part of the project budget. Are they working just on some other stuff and just a little on this? Indirect. So all of a portion of what you're spending anyway, but specifically the bits in service to this project, that's what you want to track. A lot of times those are those operating expenses, your studio rent, your rehearsal space rent. And some of them are program expenses that you are part of your creative life. But some other ones to be on the lookout for: fiscal sponsorship fees and utilities, internet, and a portion of that personnel. You know, it's a little easier to do when you are writing from the point of view of an organization. When you write from a budget and budget craft from the point of view of an individual artist, you're like, well, what is my annual budget? And it begs the question, which I hope you'll dig into, which is like, you probably do have an annual budget as an individual artist. On the template, it's rows 50 and 51. Crystal, what else would you add to this?
I put in professional membership fees,
Oh, yeah.
subscriptions to, anything that you would put on your taxes to write off your musical activities. So if you're, subscribing to certain research vehicles, like,
Yeah.
um,
The Wire
or
magazine, it does. It counts.
yeah, purchasing music, purchasing recordings, it all goes into the general operating fund. And then you take a percentage of that large number, and those are your indirects.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
CMA membership, absolutely. Chamber Music America.
Yeah, all your memberships. Go ahead. Insurance is a indirect cost. Sometimes, though, you need event insurance in order to have a performance go off. If that's true, it's related to your project. 100% of the cost goes into your project.
I will add that with fiscal sponsorship, Intermusic does provide liability insurance.
There are ways to avoid that cost. Anything else? All right, we'll get into your budget specifically after this. We're almost there. We're going through here. Let's go on to the next slide. Thanks so much. We did in kind. Yeah, cool. How do you calculate your total expenses? Same way. Your people, personnel, your things, non-personnel, and your in kind all add up to total expense. So in your total income, it's what you had to work with, your total expenses, what you're going to have to cover. That, in essence, is how a good arts project budget is made. Seriously, that's it. That's all there is. But we'll keep going because what we find is on the next slide we talk about this bottom line. So once you put your best thinking into your income and your best thinking into your expense, you're going to subtract expense from income. And you get this, you'll see in budgets called profit, parens, loss, close parens. In financial terms, anything in parentheses is considered a negative number. So the bottom line can look disproportionate, like oh no, I'm running at a loss. Or, oh, I have this ridiculous surplus, on the musical grant program budget template, line 58, you'll see this bottom line. And that's when you start making adjustments. So how do you make adjustments to your bottom line so that it works, that you have enough income and enough expenses? Musical grant program is really interested in making sure that you have the right amount of income and the right amount of expenses. And zero is the result of this math. So right now, bottom lines represent your best guess, your possibility. It does not have to be a zero, but it's most welcome in MGP applications. They're looking for that balance. It can be a positive number. And what might be the reason for that? The fact that when we make our work, we're actually doing enough to create a little bit to set aside to start the work after that. It's okay to run a little bit of surplus if you are going to be doing one project after the other. So, but remember for MGB, they're going to be looking for that zero number. When it's a negative number in parentheses, it's time to think about adjusting the scale of your project to fit your resources. And that's hard to do. So let's just go on to how we might do that with the budget as storytelling. All right. At the beginning of the workshop, I told the story of my colleague doing that shrug and saying a budget is table with some math in it based on what you want to do. It seems simple, and it should be. And now it's time to focus on how that last part of that sentence, based on what you want to do, can work for you. And let's just go ahead and go to the next slide and start thinking about linking our grant budget to the MGP population. A budget is part of a bigger story. It shows where when you write your narrative in your grant application, putting in a budget allows people to see, oh, not only do they understand it in writing words, they also understand it from point of view of financial figures. So the two of them are actually the same type of story. Second, it creates an important accountability strand in your work. Once you say, I got to earn this money, I have to have these contributions in order to pay these people, in order to do these things, it becomes a plan. It's a roadmap for how the project is going to unfold. So there's accountability. You can check your budget and then proceed with what each stage of your project. And importantly, the budget comes after your idea. So the writing comes first, and then the budget is meant to realize the idea. Let's keep going. So write the story first, then map the numbers. Instead, I was talking about income, expense, personnel, non-personnel. Ask yourself natural questions. What is being created? How much does every little thing about it cost? And then what is involved? How you find and who is involved? How are you financially valuing those people in your project? And the hardest one, especially if you have not already received a ton of grants, which is what's a realistic fundraising goal? What's enough to get by? You know, how little could I receive and still do this work? And then what's simply not enough? Like if I don't get there, we can't go forward. I think we have some questions coming. Go ahead.
Well, I had a,
Comment?
yes, I had a comment. I just wanted to uplift the second bullet point. How are you financially valuing the folks who are involved in your project? Now, this could be a mission-driven question, in my opinion. And I think, you know, if you have a project budget and a large percentage of it is going towards paying your musicians, it will, if part of your mission is saying I want to, well, you know, work with people that I respect and I want to have them be well compensated, and then you turn to the budget and only 10% of your budget is going towards artist fees, then it's not matching
Yeah.
a story that you're trying to tell. So that's a way in which storytelling is reflected in your budget. How is your mission, your values reflected in the financials that you're providing?
Let's, yeah, we have to keep asking ourselves this question. I care about all these musicians and what they're about to do. Are they the largest part of my budget? You let's keep going.
And also, are you partnering with
Yeah.
a funder whose mission is also to well compensate or provide sustainability within the arts sector? If that's the case and you show up with, I'm not going to pay my artists. I've seen this in budget proposals before. Like everyone, all of the artists are just pro bono, they're all in kind. That doesn't really speak to the mission of the partner that you're trying to propose to. So also think about if you are considering not paying your artists, who are your partners?
That's good. We'll get into that matching. Remember that concert C and transposing your ideas in your budget for different funders? This thing that you're talking about, Crystal, about matching the intent of your project and the intent of the funder is also very good. It'll allow you a decision screen to figure out whether you should apply it all. You know? Yeah. All right. If you change the story, change the numbers. Go back through. If you change your narrative, and not the type of change which is like, I have to get 3 pages, you know, like if you substantially change your story about what you're trying to do, always go back to your numbers. It's okay to just cycle through. Expect to rinse and repeat. I had it up there on the slide. Awesome. Let's keep going. And then translate for the reader. This is transposition. When a budget template is required, use a template, map to it. When it isn't, check anyway. I read the MGP guidelines and they said, hey, we have this budget you can use, but if you want to use your own budget, that's cool. That's true. But I also looked at their budget to figure out what's important to them. Oh, I see how they listed all these artist fees first. I get that they're suggesting these types of production expenses. So they're smart. They know what's going on there. If I do my own format, I'm probably going to try to make sure that they feel they can do a quick translation, quick transposition, so that they're not lost in my budget. Here's the other really good thing. There's a column G in that thing for budget notes. And you're like, I don't want to write budget notes. I just gave you a superb narrative. Everything should tie together. Oftentimes it doesn't. It's like 5 rehearsals, 6 musicians at $200 per, just write it out so people can show your work, as they say in math land. And make sure that those notes align with the narrative that you're storytelling, which is like, I'm going to put people through 5 rehearsals on our way to this show. And then they see in the budget, oh, there they are. Those are the rehearsals. That's the time that they're going to spend. And in general, I'm not trying to tell people what to do right now. I'm trying to encourage you to just help the reader feel as confident as you do. That's really what it's about. Share your story in such a way that they're all like, I see how this is being planned out. I'm just as excited about it. So column G, I really dig. And take a look at the application template on page 8 for that as well. All right, let's keep going. Once you submit, what happens to a budget? I'm always curious about this. I'm always saying to myself, like, I believe I'm going to fold it carefully and I'm going to put it in an envelope in a Ziploc bag and I'm going to put it in the freezer. I'm done. I'll open it on New Year's Day and see what happens. But actually keep it within reach. Keep that tab open. Because as part of that accountability thing we were talking about, just track your progress. People are wearing watches right now, I believe, that count their steps. This budget can kind of be your step counter for you as well. Don't change your budget. Things are going to go south. That grant's not going to come in. Or maybe all of a sudden you got a stock donation. It's wonderful. Everything's taken care of. Anyway, changes will happen. The budget is just a plan, and life intervenes on our plans. So, what you do in budget land is you put a column to the right. The budget you submitted was said budgeted. It's called actual, and you track what happened, and then one more to the right of that called balance. So it subtracts what you thought budgeted minus actual, and then you can find out how you're doing. That's your progress report. Go ahead.
I'll just add that I also have a projections column because I can see kind of it hasn't come in. It's not actual. I really just put actual in actual. And then in the projections, it's like, well, I think it will, like, I know I'll have this expense over 12 months or whatever. And so I have the projections and I have those, so just in case, because I always run into that personally, like, I know it's gonna come, but it's not actual. So that's my not actually, but maybe, probably.
That's good. I mean, I think you are making a deal with yourself right now. But yeah, you can project. You're all like, yeah, that type of workshop fee that I'm getting is golden. It's really going to be there. It's going to be there in September. All will be well. I don't have the cash just yet, but I know it's in my pending column because I signed a contract. New rows for unanticipated items. So you didn't budget for a stock donation on your income, but you got one anyway. Put it in there with 0 as the budget and the actual amount that you got. It was blistering. It was 6 figures. So everything's going to be great. Likewise with your expenses. I had no idea I had to get event insurance. Why didn't I get a fiscal sponsor? So you add a line and it says event insurance, 0 for what you budgeted, and then the $167 it might take to get that event insurance. I will also add a link in my resources to event insurance, but column F, if you look at the MGP budget, it says here's a column that is about when people report on their grants, what actually happened. Do we have that? Yeah. Submit with reporting, actual. If you're lucky enough, you can do it. Let's keep going.
Suki, I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
if you're setting up a budget versus actual column, is it actual minus budget or is it budgeted versus actual?
It depends on which side you're on, the income or the expense. So if you were going to plan to raise $10,000 for your project and you've only raised 8, so it would be the budgeted amount of 10 minus the 8 means I have 2K more to raise. Down below, I was hoping to spend only $100 on insurance. I can't believe I'm saying this so many times. I had to pay 200. Actually, I don't know. Let's experiment. Let's somebody put this together in a budget and see if it makes sense to them. So I would say again, budget minus actual equals reality. I'm over budget by $100. If only someone would donate some stock. The market is up, people. We need if you play that game. All right. Any other questions before we move on to just part 3? I wanted to say some things about part 3 of the application. I'm calling up my notes right now.
We've got some questions from the
Let's do it.
chat.
Here. Yeah.
Is it important that a grant applicant contribute money of their own towards the project? If it is important, how much is expected?
No, not expected at all. We're really hoping that we don't have to self-fund our projects. We do it. We do it all the time. And if you're doing it, be honest about it. But my opinion, I'm speaking for myself. I don't think that people should evaluate budgets based on artists going broke, self-funding themselves. Go ahead.
I would love to just point out that this is a great place to highlight what is being self-funded in the notes column of a budget. So when you have notes next to all of the lines, you want to break out what all of those lines actually are and all of the amounts should 100% add up to the budget line. But if you are self-funding, that's a great place in the individual contributions line to say, $500 is my own money. So maybe you're applying for the maximum amount of a grant, or you're kind of seesawing how much you will put in. It's a great line to have transparency about, because a funder can look at that and say, well, if they're self-funding and we would tip the scale so that this artist gets paid, that could also be, again, mission alignment, where, we would be taking this off of their hands if we fund it fully. So I think there's just a little bit to say. I don't think this is the case where, you need quote unquote skin in the game to say, oh, I'm a funder of my own work and I believe in it, so come to the table with me. I think this is more of a just show the actual cost and where those expenses lie. And there is zero expectation that an artist should self-fund.
Agree. I have in my lifetime met people that got a windfall and decided to buy a house, put on an opera, you know, create a creative community on a piece of property north of here. So it is possible to self-fund because of your intention. But I think what we're talking about here today with our project budgets for art projects, we should not put this on ourselves. Yeah. We should value our work, put it on there as a line item, but you are not responsible for that. Okay. Oh, so I read the application, and there are 3 parts of your budget that have to tie to the narrative. So I thought, let's just spend a minute going through it. Remember, budgets are beautiful: income, expense, personnel, non-personnel, but you have to transpose for the grant that you're seeking right now. So let's just go through and I think it's only 1 slide. So, and then we'll get into deep questions. Wow, really? I have no idea where that's going. Okay. Total annual budget. Yes, I do know where it's going. In the guidelines, they say, what's your total annual budget as an individual artist? We mentioned this a little earlier. And you're like, I don't know. It may be the same as your project budget because that's all you're doing. Or it may be larger because, you're an organization, you're presenting artwork all the time, and you have an institutional budget. As an individual, it can be hard to find out what your annual budget is just for being. So consider maybe using the annual budget from the Common Grant Application General Operating Support template. It might not exactly map to your situation, but just so you can have a framework for how to figure that out. Earlier, we were talking about project-specific expenses, a little bit of indirect portions of expenses that you're incurring all the time. That type of budget, what's your annual budget, gives you a chance to express the full totality of what it costs to be you. All right, let's keep going. And then the narrative on asks for total expenses, total project budget. And so you'll say, well, that's my income. No. Your total project budget are your expenses, what you have to cover. So look at your budget, line 57, and put that number in your application. So you have that right there. Third place. I remember it. Let's go to the next slide. What is the amount of the grant request? It's actually on row 19 of your budget. So make sure they sync up. And also, you could even get crafty if you're a little Excel head, and if it's greater than 4,000, a little thing will pop up and go, no, lower, lower. But whatever is on that budget should match what's in your application. I just wanted to point out those things because as someone who's read a ton of applications, someone who's submitted a ton of applications, when there's no sync right there, it's very jarring. So those are the 3 little hot spots I'd point out. Anything to add on that? Awesome. Let's keep going. Questions and answers. We're at 7:58. We got about 30 more minutes. This is a time to pull out your project budgets with specific questions about things. Any of the material we've covered, definitions, going further, we're here for you. What do you got? Pretty quiet. Oh, we're going to have you come up and grab the mic so our Zoomies can hear you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Aran, Associate Director with Jazz in the Neighborhood. We are a 501c3 organization providing accessible jazz music and guaranteeing a fair wage to musicians. I have a question when applying for grants in the budget. Given we're an organization, we have some flexibility in terms of budgeting for projects to make it so we can kind of tailor our budget to what we think the grant requires or would like. Generally, this is reducing administrative costs.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if there's a point in doing that where the people who give the grant out might think it's not feasible.
There are two minds. In my experience, I work at the Walter Elise Haas Fund, and I've learned there's 2 approaches to this. Some funders are ready to fund the full cost of what it takes. Like when you go get a cup of coffee at your local coffee place, maybe it was 3 cents for the beans and like a fraction of a penny for the water and the cup and then the barista and everything like this. Once you add all that up, it's an expensive cup of coffee. And so you're paying the full cost, even though you could probably go home and do it for 8 cents. So many, many funders are interested in us being able to describe the full cost of things. Some funders, and I just saw a comment in our notes today about limiting indirect costs, administrative costs, shrinking them like that. Is that a sign of strength of an organization? They can do all that stuff for only 9%. And I'm like, maybe because they're not paying them or valuing them correctly. I think that the movement to understand that most projects are about 25% admin overhead is real.
Hello. So, part of the way that we look at it as a similar nonprofit is allocations of how much time does each person spend on each program, in a year. So, even SF Music Day, it's at least, it's at least 4 months of the year we have considerable our entire team is focused on the program, right? So there are allocations that are reflected in the time that we spend on each thing. And we take a look at the overhead costs that our program, like specific, kind of involved in making that program happen. So yes, it can go in general operating, but we're trying to look more at the actual cost of running our programs. And I think it's where you go into something like California Arts Council that you're going to see limits.
Yeah.
Or San Francisco Arts
Gov-
Commission
government
has a
funders do that.
10%
Yeah,
limit.
notoriously.
Yeah, so they have these limits, even though the city will charge 23% for payroll on rental of a government building, which is it's well more, it's a lot
23's getting there.
a lot more than than the indirect costs, all of the indirect costs that we can claim. But so there's like this balance of who exactly. I'm just going to mirror what Suki was saying. Who is my funder? Who's my partner? And what are their values? And how do I write this budget for them?
Yeah. If you have a funder that wants to apply an indirect cost rate and make you hide your admin, which really is part of the powerful engine of the work, I get it. But you might want to really kind of go deeper with that relationship and figure out why you should spend time in it. It's your choice. It actually is. I mean, there's no money. I get it. It's shrinking. Bay Area arts funding is hard. But we can act in a principled way and keep telling our story about how much this really costs. Yeah. Go for it. What else? What else we got?
So we have a question from the chat. Is there a limitation on grant project? Compose, perform, and record a musical project on stage. So this is kind of what we were talking about offline, I think, Suki, around scope.
Yeah.
And scope of a project. And I'd like to just pull in, and I know this might be a can of worms, but I'll just pull in fiscal years, calendar year for most folks. Is that a consideration? I'll leave this to you.
Let's just start. If you could only apply for 4K from MGP, if you can do all of those things, and will MGP be like fund the entire project budget, or do you like to see other pieces and other sources of income?
So because it's a project budget, and also for emerging artists, we can be the only funder.
That's great. I applaud that. And so I would be surprised if you could go through all those phases of a production for 4K. But you're like, I will, and I'm going to raise another 96K in order to do it. So you're setting a real high bar for yourself. So you might want to chunk it out just so MGP and other funders can participate.
I will say also that MGP and many other funders have limits on annual budget size. So if you have an annual budget, general operating, like we were talking about, of more than $150,000 a year,
Is that your limit?
then you're not eligible for this funding opportunity. Because what we're trying to see is how can $4,000 have an outsized impact. $4,000 for a smaller organization is going to mean a lot more. It's a bigger percentage. It can have a big impact on what they're doing versus if you're already at $156,000, is $4,000 really going to impact what you're doing already? Are we doing more, or would you maybe find the funding elsewhere? Whatever the case may be.
It depends on the maturity of the project and the people running it,
At the same time, it costs $100,000 to write and produce an opera. So, and we fund opera. So where do you have funders that are already committed, have activities? How far back should you go in describing the project and placing this funding at a critical time for the project that would say, we really need your partnership to make this to make this happen.
That's a good story. You ground the reader in everything that you've done and the future that you see. And you say, but in this moment, this is where we really want to focus, and this is why this support makes sense. Why we should, you know, be in partnership. But I like the way telling that story that way allows people to see the breadth and depth of your thinking about what your project is going to be, and also focus them into the place where they can take action.
So then do you include, how much of that financially do you include in the project budget?
You know, I would add a column, which is anathema. Nobody wants to have somebody add a column. But you could put in the narrative saying, this is a $100,000 project over 5 years. In this grant period, we're going to be focusing on a $15,000 element, of which 4,000 would come from MGP. You know, just say it. And then in the budget note, you know, don't mess with their budgets. If they want a budget template, just stick with them because it helps them translate. But
And we don't require a budget template. You
yeah,
can
yeah.
submit anything.
I think the one that the common grant application one is a good one to learn.
Oh, it's the same one. So
Yeah,
the
I know.
MGP budget, yeah, same
Yeah.
budget template.
What else we got?
So there was a added question from Anne. I have a similar project in mind as Melinda's. Some of the artists on the recording will not be the same as the ones performing the work. Do I need to differentiate these two segments of the project in the budget? And how far in advance do I need to know which specific people will be involved?
Okay, I can answer the budget part, which is it's really great to show the recording artists and the performing artists as part of the entire family of people realizing the work. So I would split them out. Then, from the point of view of your narrative, is it more competitive that how would you sign a contract and get these people on board before you've gotten the money? All of a sudden, you know, eyes start to jiggle and everything like that. So I'll put that part to Crystal. How much specificity do you want about the artists involved and their CV?
I think that history with the partners that you are proposing is strengthens your proposal. So if you have a history of working with these folks, or if there's particular mission alignment with the project partners and performers that you are looking to collaborate with, that would also speak to the probability of it actually happening. And also, proposals and budgets are your best guess. Things happen, things change. People, you know, can't tour when they thought they would, and so you just, if there are major changes to your budget or proposal as you're seeing the project through, my advice is always to reach out to your funders and say, hi, first of all, I still exist, and this is what's going on. And I think, you know, I hope it's fine, but I wanted to give you the heads up before the end, you know, you're actually submitting your final report.
When we're at the proposal stage, I have named artists, but I like what you say, Crystal, about relationship. I also named our relationship with that artist, and I said they were unconfirmed. So if you can name them and they're part of the community of this work, and you could show that in the narrative, do it, and also say unconfirmed. Other things.
We have another comment, and has said in the chat, I love that advice about adding a column and thinking of projects as phases and focusing a budget on a specific phase. In terms of the organizational budget, our projects take 3 to 4 years to complete, and so the organizational budget really changes depending on the year. Is it best to create an average or just the previous year? I'm sorry if I missed, you know.
Oh, like what is your organizational budget? Annual organizational?
Yeah, actually, I have some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard, but you go ahead.
Yeah, I would go ahead and give the current year number for what your budget phase is. You're in, a lean year 3 of 5, where 5 is just going to be a blowout, and just write the note, you know, saying we expect budget growth, um, through the next 2 years, or we're going to budget contract because our production takes place at the end of this year.
I've also seen just multiple years offered and an explanation. So if you were active 2 years ago but not last year, you just provide more history.
That's a great idea too. I I hope people are understanding that we're leaning on the side of transparency, honesty, candor. Everything can be explained. It's okay. You don't have to present a report card with a bunch of A's on it. This is just really about sharing the story of what's real.
So someone in the chat has asked, if we already submitted the application, can we still edit the budget? And my follow-up question is this a technical question? Like you wanted to make a change
Yeah.
like immediately after? Like, is that a technical question, or has something changed with the project in which I will pass to Suki to answer?
Yeah, let us know if you just press submit too soon. Okay.
Just
Great.
so I would suggest rethinking.
You press submit just at the right time, and now you have an idea that things have changed. Something fell through, a new expense came.
We're going to look that up for you, because I know that there's a setting for our award for our application platform that either allows for editing after submission or not. And I can't remember what we decided, but I thought it was that you could update after submission, because sometimes we see things that are
Yeah. You're like,
could
all of a
use some
sudden,
edits.
my
And we do guide applicants through that process. So the sooner you submit your application, the more, like, the sooner we can actually do outreach and say, hey, I saw this really weird thing in your budget, which is what happens with a lot of applicants. We kind of help you get across the finish line so that when it goes to the panel, you've really taken, we've caught anything that rose like through red flags.
That's a great practice. I applaud Inner Music for doing that, because you're rushing to the finish line on some of this stuff, and you should have a chance, what we call when we do this, when we vote, to cure. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that thing that was supposed to be over on page 8 of the application isn't there. We should be able to correct those things. What if you've received a grant and then down the way you need to make adjustments? This again is about having great trusted relationships with your funders to be able to talk to them about it. And it's not one and done. Like a lot of times you're like, I got it. I better not show up with this funder who trusted me and tell them that I can't do the work. You absolutely should show up and tell them what's going on. That type of honesty is really foundational. It allows funders to learn and grow in what their understanding is of the arts ecosystem in the Bay, and it allows you to stay in control of the story of what's happening with you, because it's a pretty close knit group here in the Bay. Projects are succeeding and failing all the time. It's better that we tell our own story about what's happening for us. I say, take a take a deep breath, call that funder. Yeah. Anything else out there?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Success, as we say, victory. So I'll be working with Inner Music to put this deck together, and we'll get assets out to you. And I'll also think about some of the things we mentioned about artist wages, fiscal sponsorship, event insurance, other resources that I've had that I use routinely to make my budgets. So we'll put that in as well.
Yep, absolutely. I just want to just point out as in addition, just kind of circling back on a really important point I think that you made, Suki, which was that what you talk about in the narrative shows up in the budget. So if you talked about having a few workshop sessions with an ensemble, and you have in your timeline that you're planning for a dress rehearsal and a sits probe, is that included in your projections? If you're, doing a large scale release, do you have a line item for your PR consultant? How are you going to do this large scale release without like working with some kind of marketing personnel? So just in the in the area where you have an opportunity to succinctly say exactly what the funder will be supporting, the activity, what are they supporting on a very basic level? Are those elements represented on the lines of your budget?
Yeah, tie it together. Crystal, that's it for me. If there are no other further questions, I'll allow you to close us out, but not before a ton of gratitude for what Inner Music SF is doing for our arts ecology here in the Bay. I've applied to this. Crystal asked me, goes, how many times have you been benefiting from this grant? And I don't know. It's been a ton. I've been in ensembles that have been supported by this program a lot. I've applied and I haven't gotten it. Do not be defeated by that. You know, we often apply for things and we're not going to get it, and you just hone your craft. This was about budget craft. I also want to give a shout out to Tyrone, to Mark, for their support of this ideation of this work and the technology that comes behind it so we can have a seamless experience. And Crystal, for your thought partnership. That we didn't know that we were going to be a panel. I love it. So good. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Suki. This has been real. I hope this has been helpful for everyone. If you have additional questions as you're diving into your budgets, please feel free to reach out. Also, just reference the video of this workshop that will be posted to our homepage and soon to come workshop page. It's always up on our YouTube channel. And also please consider tying this together with your proposal at the March 11th workshop. Thanks, everybody. Talk soon. And fill out the survey when it comes, please. Thank you.